everyone. Welcome to another edition of Cafecito and Conversation, otherwise known as Coffee and Conversation. I'm here with my guest, Elizabeth Wight. I'm so excited to have all of you meet her. We're going to dive into leadership and many more things. So we're going to go ahead and get started because we have a lot of stuff to talk about and not enough time. And Elizabeth, just start off by letting everybody know who you are and what you do.
Okay, well, my name is Elizabeth Wight, as she said, and thanks, Dominica, for having me. This is really fun. I've been very excited about this. And I am a nonprofit CEO, for one thing. So I run a nonprofit called, well, we're rebranding this weekend. It's going to be called the Food Initiative. And I've been doing that for about 7 years. But through that experience and through my education in business and now my executive MBA, which I'm pursuing, and also running all kinds of businesses and leading in all kinds of ways in my family and, my church. And there are so many ways that you experience leadership. I've just kind of honed a style of leadership that tends to be maybe a little bit controversial at times, but that I think is what the world needs. And certainly it's how my soul relates to leadership and to the people that I work with. And so that's how I ended up here talking about and thinking about and living radically loving leadership.
I love it. Well, thank you for being on here. And I'm excited to dive into this topic because, which we'll dive in a little bit because I don't want to go into it right away. But I had such a hard week recently. Or these last couple of weeks have been really hard and really have been testing my leadership skills because I feel like there's no guidebook through this pandemic. So this is why it was important to me to talk about this topic. But I did want to start with asking you a simple question of, do you think that kindness is a valuable asset to a leader?
That's a simple question, but also not, because the answer is yes, like profound, loud, bold, yes. However, like you'll have to convince people of that. Not everybody gets that. Not everybody believes that. Not everyone models that, certainly. It's not always something that we feel like we can do in the feminine part of us in the workplace, in leadership. Sometimes we think we have to almost shy away from that to be tough and to be leaders. Absolutely incorrect. Kindness is number two. If I say number one is love, but it's fruit of love. So I think that, I couldn't say it more loudly. But I'm curious to what exactly led to that question, because that seems really specific.
Well, because I feel like anytime I've had a conversation where I've been on in front of somebody else that may be of a higher position, I always hear, you have to put a boundary. And most recently, the words that were said to me were, we're not friends with them. Yeah. I paused for the dramatic effect of it. We have to set boundaries. And to be really share the specific example was a discussion on the open door policy, and being able to not let people verbally throw up on you. And what I mean by that is where they just come in and just spill all this verbiage on you, right? And then you take that on because you said you had an open door policy. And I feel like to a certain extent, if you close that door and don't allow people to walk through it, and I mean not only physically, but also in a sense mentally, right? Because you spend all this time with, your colleagues, you should become a work family.
Right.
But if you say, no, this is how it's going to be, this is how it needs to look, then to me, it doesn't feel like you're taking all that, the elements of empathy and kindness and compassion and love away and just being by the book.
So that's a complicated scenario because there are two sides of this. And I will say, like this is love, right? So my angle, that that I'm coming from, coming at this issue is always surrounded by love. So love is complicated in all its forms. So number one, an open door policy depends on how it's defined. Sometimes that's just a word and just a phrase, and it doesn't mean anything. Certainly, I actually sometimes close my door on my office because sometimes I need to get work done. So I mean, if you're being literal, like I never close my door, that's not me. It also does not mean I do not have boundaries, because love, I'm talking about the healthy kind of love, right? So healthy love has boundaries where I will not allow someone to abuse me. I won't allow, which can go both ways. I mean, it can. There can be such hostility that it goes both ways. And I will tell you, I am so averse to that. It just like, it shuts me down. And that's a learning edge I have, but I won't allow that. So if it's unkind or it's cruel or it's, if it's inappropriate kind of unloading in that way, I won't tell the person to leave. I won't say, shut up. I won't say like, hey, this is not the place, but I will redirect because I want a productive conversation. And love, sometimes love means actually enforcing boundaries so that we can both be healthy. And certainly love definitely means like having empathy, but sometimes that's a two-way street. So the whole thing with radically loving leadership for me is very much that I am an equal with everyone that I say that works for me, but that I work for them as well, right? It's my job to sign their paycheck. It's my job to set expectations. But if I don't set expectations and hold them to it, I'm not doing my job, and they have a right to ask me for that. They have a right to ask me to show up and to be, so it's completely a two-way street. It's just a different, we have different roles. So it kind of depends on how that is. If it comes in and it's very negative, you certainly have to protect yourself. However, I want to say all that because your mental health is important as a leader, just like theirs is. And theirs being your coworker, your employee, your boss, whoever it is that's coming in and doing this. But also, I do think we tend to push this like you have to take care of yourself first a little too far sometimes. We've gotten where we've gotten by always looking out for number one. Now it's complicated. We have different backgrounds. Some of us have more privilege than others and have the ability to maybe really kind of say, I have a lot of privilege and I have a lot of, I was born on third base, right? So like I can hold back and I can really not look out for number one on this. I understand that's not true for everybody. So I want to couch that in saying, for me, I don't think it's always appropriate. It's really not about me. I don't put myself first. And that can be controversial, self-care and all that. And that doesn't mean I don't take care of myself, but that's what I mean. So I do have an open door policy, and I like to tell people, if you're telling me the truth, you can tell me anything, right? You can't punish. And if you punish someone telling you the truth, if you say no, they will not trust you anymore. Honesty and truth and trust are a two-way street as well. And people stop trusting you if they can't come there and be a safe place. And then what happens? I like to say, stricter parents don't make better kids. They make better liars.
Drop the mic right there.
Right there. So, yes. And of course there are arguments against that. I'm not like I'm not like, hey, no rules with my kids, but it's true. You have to be loving. You have to be a safe place to make mistakes. And you have to be that for your coworkers, your employees, your staff, if you want to call it that way as well. So I probably answered way more than your question, but does that answer your question? I mean, is that what you're looking at?
No, definitely. You definitely hit the mark. And I just love how you encompassed it to radically loving leadership, which I know you have a book coming, so I definitely want you to mention that. But I love the perspective of, it is a two-way street, right? You can't just allow someone to come in and dump X, Y, Z at you. And it does, if you don't know how to separate that, it does affect your mental health, and it's a lot to take on that is not yours. And I think there's a perspective of like, well, that's not my circus, not my monkey, right? And to a certain extent, because I love how you said that it's not about me, it's about them, and I think when it comes to creating a safe space and a safe work environment, a safe culture, I think it's so important, because I do want somebody to come to me And you make an excellent point about, well, hey, if you're telling the truth, then that's all that matters. And you can work with that and problem solve together. But when you cross that line of like drama or adding maybe gossip,
right? That has no place. That's not loving, though. That's outside of that, right? And so you just nailed it with that. And I like that you said problem solve together, because problem solving together is really what it amounts to. Because it's not just that I won't solve problems for people. I cannot solve your problem. It wouldn't be loving of me to do so.
Right.
Because that's just saying, like, I can save you. I have all the answers. First of all, if you're someone who genuinely needs help, right, then I'm not teaching you anything. If I'm in a position to teach something, I'm not teaching by doing it for you and saying, here's what you need to do, and here's that. You have to dig and learn together. But also, people are resourceful. People have the internal resources. They just sometimes need help accessing those. And a good leader hones that skill. I mean, nobody's born with the skill to do everything right, but you can hone any skill, and honing the skill of helping people solve their own problems and build their own bridges is probably the most important trait that a leader needs to hone. I really believe that.
Right. That is so true. That's a great point. And I like to interpret that as me being the activator. You know, how can I activate
that? Good word. I love that.
Right?
Yeah.
Yeah. And most recently I was talking to a friend, and I said, you know, it's always important to me to understand, how am I going to show up in your story?
Okay.
And so really taking that on is, you know, I don't want to be your problem solver. I don't want to do things for you. I don't want to take that role of maybe enabler. And so being present on how I show up as a mentor, as a supporter, as a friend, you know, as a, you know, manager, or, you know, everything under the spectrum, right? When it comes to leadership, for sure.
You said that beautifully. And I will say, I do want to, I'll tell you my personality. I do want to save everyone. I do want to solve their problems. I do want to save them. I do want to, you know, I have the codependency side. I have that trait that, like, I do want to help and save everyone. I want to be, my instinct is to be everyone's lifeboat. I thought that was love. I thought that was empathy. It took really an abusive relationship many years ago to, and I've had sort of abusive relationships, both there was a marriage, but I've also had that in a workplace where I've experienced abusive relationships. I think that you probably have too. Most people have. So I do want to do all those things, and I actually know that you do too, but you realize that it's not going to work. It's not safe. Right. It's not fair. It's not appropriate. And that's not what love is. And so a lot of this is like, I can't say how I think about love with my friends and my family and my spouse and my children from how I think about love in the workplace, because love is love, and it has the same sort of definitions, and it doesn't, and it's, there's sometimes a fine line to walk, and sometimes you have to just follow your heart in that.
Oh, finger snap to that. Seriously, for anyone that's watching or listening, definitely go pause us right now. Go get your notebook, get your pen, because we're going to drop some good wisdom. And definitely there's so much truth to that. And I think when talking about diving a little bit deeper to love and relationships, it took me a long time to understand that a work environment can be abusive, that a friendship can be abusive. And it's not just what you typically would normally default to, as well as, in a marriage or in a, relationship. Like, it goes in all different facets, and it has all different masks. And, a way to distinguish that, I feel like, when it doesn't feel good, there's, I have to agree with you. It took me a long time to recognize it in myself, that I had that codependency, and I am a saver. I just want to save everyone. I want everyone to be happy. Recovering people pleaser, right? Yep. But it's kind of like that moment, that epiphany that I had, that if I really wanted to accomplish my mission in this life, And if I wanted to leave with love, like I'm going to have to recognize that I'm not helping anyone or the situation by allowing me to live there or stay in that.
I want to add to that because it is bad for you, but also, do you know what comes out of this? When you have to save everyone, I realize, well, I'm going to say me. When I have to save everyone, I came to this profound realization that I'm making it about me. Ouch, right? You're making it about yourself. When you have to save them, you're making it about you. It is not about you. Like, absolutely. You need to be the main character in your own story. And I think some of us live forever not doing that. And being savers can cause us to always be playing a role in someone else's story and not in ours. So I am all for being the main character in your story, but you are not the main character in everyone's story. Don't make it about you. And some people will let you. They want you to. They want, and there's a time when you dive in and you save someone because there's desperation and they're drowning. And I've had people do that for me. There's a time and a place when the person has the resources. It's not going to drain them. It's not going to hurt their relationships, their mental health. There's a time when somebody is, I believe, they're put there for a reason. So I want to say that kind of situation notwithstanding, we're always going to have the people that run into the burning building. We have to. But in the workplace, that's where it gets complicated when you talk about boundaries. But I like it. I like complicated and I like messy. The work of radically loving leadership is messy. There's no way around it. There really isn't a guidebook. I'm trying to write one, but it's not easy. And it's still because everybody's story is different. Yeah. My culture of my workplace is not the same as another one's, but there are truths at the base of this. There are truths that are just, I believe that the truth is true, right? Postmodernism may say it's not, but there is truth. And so those things can apply everywhere. Right. And that's kind of what I'm trying to base it on to the best of my ability in my flawed humanity. That's what my goal is.
Right. And I think that's something I enjoy that transparency because not every leader gives that to you. Right. And so not everyone's going to admit that, hey, it's messy. Mm-hmm. And like you said, love is messy and it's okay. And it's through that messiness that I have found, I have really found myself. The way that I love to lead, the way that I interact with others, the way that, learning about behavior styles and love languages. But it took
so important. Love languages, you hit one there. That's a big one.
Right. That's so true. And, okay. So that really was a game changer for me because when I was first introduced to the book and the 5 love languages, it was from a context relationship. But when I had a mentor that shifted that to in the workplace, that was a dramatic game changer. And it was more unfortunately, it wasn't because I had a leader that wanted to work with me and was trying to figure out my love language. It was more of the mentor, Dominica, this is the way that's going to help you out if you understand your team's love language. And it was such a shift because I thought, wow, no wonder in the past different people would say something or do something for me that was against my love language. And it made me understand myself even more.
Mm-hmm. That is important. That's really important and very true. And I think that it goes, love languages are a great place to start, and it gets deeper because you have to learn. Not everybody. Okay, I have to couch this again. That in a corporate setting, when you have who knows how really large corporations, there is a question I've asked myself: does this apply? Can this work in those situations where you can't know the management style? You can't know the style that people need to be managed in. Now, I have staff that wants me to be more hands-on. Now, some of that is because they have been disempowered and they want me to lead them because they've been disempowered by bosses or culture or whatever it is. And if that's the case, it's my job to empower. And that's that's big, but that is my job. Now, some people, they just want to be managed a little differently because of the way their brain works or their love language, or they want more time with you because then they feel appreciated. You have to acknowledge that. But even it doesn't matter how big your business is. The top management has middle management, and the middle management manages a few people. We are all managing people all the way down, up top to bottom in a hierarchy of a tall like that.
Right.
I'm a fan of a flat organization, but that's not reality everywhere. That's not going to work everywhere. But we all have a circle of influence in our workplace, and this can spread like wildfire, like a drop in a bucket. It can really spread out through that if you. So I want to apply that because even then, because it sounds so untenable when you talk about learning everybody's style of
right.
love language and all that, but it is possible. Yeah.
Right. And then I know that through seasons, that we walk through seasons in life. And I understand that we also have seasons that we go through in our work environment. There's different things that happen, and, it shifts us to like different things or work a little different. So I completely understand how you can have a baseline for understanding love language, but it will shift. Right. And especially if you're really working really well with someone and you're empowering them, or you're really supporting them where they're leveling up their skills, and then it's going to shift, just by default. And I did want to get into this thought of, can you tell me a little bit more about applying transformative techniques to foster a culture of radically loving leadership?
I would love to. So here's the thing, transformation of leadership of a culture. You don't just transform a culture.
Yeah.
The transformation is for the leader. You have to fix the leader before it can shift the culture. Mm-hmm. And it's managing up is a thing, right?
Right.
I believe that. I am of the mind that that your boss works for you, and if you have a terrible boss, you fire them. So you can fire your boss by moving on and leaving somewhere else. Fire your boss. I'm all about it. Now, there are circumstances where you can manage up and you can't, but because who I'm speaking to is leaders in this setting, in whatever setting they're a leader in, you have to start by transforming your own skills. That means understanding yourself. That means not being afraid to dig in and find which toxic traits you do have. People pleasing, they're not all like bad. They can seem really good. They're wrapped in good stuff. I tend to be conflict avoidant. I'm working on it so hard.
Okay.
Sometimes I have almost like gone too far the other way. I mean, it happens. I'm like, I jump to like, I think, well, that means I have to dig right in and address it right now. And it's not always the right time. So there's like this middle ground. Yeah. I'm constantly learning. Transformational, radically loving leadership in this setting absolutely starts with transforming the leader. And you have to do the work. I mean, there's no simple way to do it. But it comes from being vulnerable, honest with yourself, honest with others that are around you, allowing other people to be honest with you without consequence.
Right.
Which is so hard. And I'm talking about like the 360 review kind of thing, people reviewing you back, always accepting feedback. If you do nothing else, if you listen and apply what you learn from listening to yourself and listening to others, you will shift your culture because it will change you. It'll change the way you interact with people. People will follow. And people who can't get in line with it will leave. Some people need to be fixed. And I'm not saying no one's beyond redemption, but it's not my job to redeem everybody's workplace style. If this radically loving workplace isn't for them, I understand. I wish you well and move on. But like, I'm not going to, my whole organization, the other people who are in my care, I am a steward of, cannot suffer because you can't get on board. But I like to give people the ground to do it. And people almost invariably do. People are transformed by love. And that starts with working on yourself. Does that answer your question? Is that what
no. You know why I wanted to dive into it? Because I think the last couple of months, obviously not only through a health crisis, but just the social climate, the political climate. And like I mentioned earlier, I feel like, well, there's no rule book for, how to handle all this. And, sometimes there is an opportunity to say like, well, with all this going on, let's revisit the way that we lead and our climate and our culture that are in our specific organizations. And so that was a lot of topic amongst friends recently in the last couple of months, right? But I love how you pinpointed it, that it really starts with you as a leader and really dissecting yourself and looking at yourself 360. Because I think especially if, in the last couple of months and having different conversations with a lot of different people, I always ask the question, like, did you have a mentor? And 9 out of 10 times, and actually 9.9, most of the people that I've interviewed recently say, no, I've never had a mentor. And so the concept of like really looking at yourself and having that 360 spectrum is new. And I love that. I wanted to have the opportunity to talk about it because most of the times when you can really do that inner work, like that's where the shift becomes that's when the shift becomes very relevant and present and wherever you're leading and wherever spectrum that looks like.
I completely agree. And I will say that the last few months have been tricky, but I actually think there have been, I don't want to sound insensitive, this has been horrible. People have died. The economic fallout of this will last decades. People die because of poverty. Like there's so much going on that's bad. But the workplace transformation, I think, is going to be good, because one of the things that is like absolutely the killer of a loving workplace, of a healthy culture, is not trusting your employees. So when you're like, you can't work from home because I don't trust you to work all day. Or whatever it is, you get away and find out, guess what? People work just as well without me breathing down their neck, maybe better. I think that it forced us to realize that we can trust, or even if we don't feel trust, we had to extend it because we didn't have a choice. And then people will prove that that's safe, that it's okay to trust. It's okay to like pull back the reins a little bit and let people self-govern. Because like, right, the top of the hierarchy of needs is self-actualization.
Right.
Ultimately, we spend all our life at work, but it doesn't matter what you're doing. You're building a widget. I feel passionate about my work, but it wouldn't matter what I was doing. I'm going to do it well, but the number one person I serve is the person actually that works for me. If I can help them to that, and I can't do that without trust. Like I have to trust them to do that, to self-actualize for themselves. And so I can meet their other needs. I can try in the ways that I can meet their other needs so that they can do that. But I actually think there's a gift to be found in all of this really scary negativity. There are good things too.
Oh, most definitely. And you said that so beautifully, because I agree with you. I'm an avid believer that there's a gift in the chaos.
Absolutely.
And sometimes it doesn't feel good. Obviously it's not going to look good. And in the moment, most of the time, most of us can't see it, but it's there. And I have to, in reflecting myself in the last couple of months, in the last couple of years in my entrepreneur journey, and deciding what path I was going to take in my career. Like it took a lot of messiness and chaos, to really develop myself into the person who I needed to be now to get through a lot of this stuff,
I really do. Yeah.
Yeah. And it's not an easy thing to do, but I also, one of my favorite quotes, which I don't even remember where I came across it or if I was watching something, reading something, but it was like, if I have the key to unlock someone else's prison, like, why am I going to keep the key to myself? And so part of that, giving somebody else that key is being able to share these things and being transparent, because like, if I can turn my pain into power and have someone else say like, wow, Dominica, that blew me away. That was exactly what I needed to hear. Or you don't understand how you answered this question that I was contemplating.
Right.
Right. Like, why not? I'm just going to give it away. And if you need it, take it. If you don't, that's okay. And, I
see, there's humility in that, not thinking that people have to take it. So humility can't be underestimated, because if your ego is involved, it's like, I have this thing to offer the world, and if they don't take it, it's going to break me. You can't, because maybe we don't always know what everyone else needs, and maybe one person needs it and one person truly doesn't, because they're resourceful and they have that particular resource. So I love the humility of that statement, and I want to just call that out because that is such a huge part of this.
Yeah, no, thank you for pointing that out, because I feel that sometimes just having all these experiences that I had and trying to find a leave a footprint in working with the community. And I'm going to say this as a general statement, blanket statement, not directed to anything specific. That lots of times with social media, it's very easy to have the ego behind it. But it's not in my DNA. If you know me,
Yeah.
you know me very well. It's just so not in my DNA. And at first, I was a little bit of a head game because I thought, wow, is this going to be perceived as me like bragging about something or saying how good this turned out for me? And then it was like, no, my intentions, like I know where my heart's at. I know I'm leading with love. I know that this is part of the thing that I feel called to do on this earth. And with that, those three things align, then, somebody's going to misinterpret it. Well, that's going to be their mirror. And I know that for that one person that really needed it in that moment in time, that's who it was for. But if I say it's a room full of people and nobody needs it, that's okay too.
But if you were to say, I don't want people to think that I am, I don't know, trying to be whatever, trying to be this particular kind of influence. I don't want people to think that. So I'm going to keep my mouth shut is actually a different kind of ego. Mm-hmm. You're still protecting self. You're protecting your self-image and how you want to control how people see you and how they do that. So sometimes controlling how people see you means not being seen. Sometimes it means just not putting yourself out there, not taking risks. And so it's hard. There's a balance, but it's internal, it's personal. I can't tell you what's right for you, but I can tell you that it's just as much egotistical and all about you to not tell anybody anything because you don't want anybody to think something badly of you. And again, I am profoundly guilty of that. Image control, I don't like to think of it as image control, but I know that I am self-conscious. I know that I have, I do want people to like me. I will admit to you, like one of my biggest troubles in life is that I do want everybody to like me. I don't know why. It just is there. It's part of me. But overcoming that is a huge part of that battle. And that does come into play as a boss too sometimes. Right. I can always be kind. I can always be loving. That doesn't mean I always say whatever you want and I always get to be likable. Right. Those two things are not mutually exclusive. Like you can really be unlikable sometimes and still be loving.
No, I interpret that as a romantic love dance. Like,
I love it. Yeah.
There's just like a way that you have to move and that rhythm and that flow that you find. And you're absolutely right. There's going to be moments like I'd be doing a disservice if I didn't tell you that that we need to work on this.
Absolutely.
Just for the fear of like, oh, damn, we have a good relationship and that's going to be ruined because of this. Right. And so that's the critical inch is just being able to have this, sense of like, and also like take a step back, just being an adult about it. Right.
Being an adult. I love it. So I don't know what is wrong with our current culture. This whole, like, I mean, I think adulting is a cute word and I get that, but truly grow up, people. Like, I feel like, so somebody said something to me today. And it's somebody I've worked with repeatedly, and they said something, and it's been somebody who I felt has at times been very ego driven. There's been a break, and then all this working together again, this person said to me, what I was noticing just a lot of humility in this, and they said, it's funny because all of a sudden I'm realizing I feel like the more experienced I am, the more I realize what I don't know, and I'm like, see, that is you just grew up,
right?
You grew up when you realize that you don't know everything, that there's more to learn than there is that you know. And so sometimes I pull back from sharing what I know because I'm thinking I have so much more to learn. But it's a give and take. This is all a process. This is all organic and a process. And I'm not good at packaging this and selling it because that's not how I work. And I want to. I want to help in a way that I can, help more people or spread this message of love like at a greater scale. So I know I have to do that work too, but it's tricky. And I know that we are short on time and I know that I'm talking a lot and you have more questions. So I will stop on that, but it's such an important thing to realize.
No, I love it. And you know what? We, this is why I love, love, love talking to you. I know, like, we don't get to do it often, but
Not enough.
yeah, not enough. And, there's so many facets that you hit, just in the simple answering of the question. And so, it was just really important to me to have some time to really do a semi-deep dive on leadership, because I feel that that's a topic that I have yet to see. And so that's why I look forward to your work on radically loving leadership, because we can talk about a million different topics, right? Not that any of it is going to have a disservice by talking about it, right? But this one thing I feel like really needs to be talked about, because I've just seen in the last year just how much of a shift it's been on being able to hear other people, and that lack of transparency of like, hey, I don't know it all, or this is what I recently encountered and I need help with this, and not being judged by it, just a clear conversation on the topic. And so that's why I'm super grateful that you were willing and open to dive in. But we are short on time, and I also want to honor your time, because I know, being a mom, and I'm expecting also myself 2 little ones to walk through that door any minute.
Yeah, yeah.
It's like hanging by a
delicate balance all the time.
Right, yeah. And so I want to make sure that if there's any last thoughts that you want to share with anyone, right now would be the time. And then also please let everyone know how to connect with you.
Okay, well, first of all, I want to say that a fantastic example of loving and leading in this like radical way is passing the mic and highlighting things that need to be said. And you're doing that, and you're doing it really beautifully. And I have learned so much from you, also about not being afraid to share my message. And so I think there are untold benefits of being authentic and real, that you are a beautiful example of, because you may not know who's going to follow that example in your fearless way of expressing yourself. And also with absolutely no ego, being willing to pass the mic and tell other people, hey, like, you talk. I want to let you talk. That's amazing. People don't like to do that. And so thank you for that. I do have a lot to say. This is like, I could talk, I told you this jokingly, I could talk about this for hours, but I could. This is not a topic to jump into easily, but distilling it down into its most basic points, I think we did. I think there's more to say. But it starts with the leader. You have to model this behavior. You can teach it, but you can give tools, but this is about modeling. And that's where it's difficult to connect. And that's where what I'm learning to do is to connect how to model it while also teaching it. It's difficult. So people I don't get to see every day. But yeah, I'm working on it. I don't know exactly. Sometime next year, hopefully by the middle of the year, I will have a book out called Radically Loving Leadership. And you can find me at elizabethwight.com. So pretty straightforward, except my last name is weird. It's not White like you'd think. It's White like the Isle of Wight, Wight. So it's elizabethwight.com. And I'm on Instagram, Elizabeth Greenlee White. I'm all over the place, and hopefully we can connect in some other ways. And I'm going to try to be in more places so I can be easier to find, but that's my learning edge, is to get out there a little bit more. So thank you for pushing me outside of my comfort zone. You have led me well today. And
thank you for the compliment, and definitely we'll add to the show notes. And then this is how all of you who've been following this platform can connect with us. Go on to YouTube. We will post the video. Obviously, first it's going to go on Roku, and then continue the conversations with us on YouTube. And we'll have all of Elizabeth's links on there so you can connect with her. And then as well, if you're connecting with us through the podcast, the She Power podcast, we'll have the audio on there and also clickable links that you can connect with Elizabeth. And then thank you so much for taking the time. I appreciate your willingness again to dive into this topic, because I will leave you with this like that. And definitely we're going to have more conversations, because I think
we have to.
30 minutes is not enough. And there was I think it was earlier this year, and you and I talked about it, and I had another leader tell me these words that will forever echo in my head. If you are going to be a leader, Dominica, you need to grow a backbone. And so this is why I'm so passionate about putting this topic out there, because I feel like there's such a gift to be able to give away and just simply having the conversation. And so this is the power of coffee and conversation. So please tune in to the next episode, and we will sign off for now. So bye, everyone. Thank you for joining us. And
thank you. Bye-bye.
Uh-huh.